All right, I think. Yep, looks like I'm live. Excellent. All right, I'll wait a few moments for everybody, or for anybody to start popping up. And yeah, once we start getting some people on here, I'll start talking more. Yeah. So, and something you might have noticed, I'm not wearing headphones. My headphone jack decided to just break or whatever. So it's not working right now. I can't use my headphones. I don't have any Bluetooth headphones. So yeah, I'd have to do this without headphones. I did some tests, and I'll be able to still listen to the music and whatnot, so long as I remember to mute my mic as it plays. So I'm not going to be able to talk while music is playing on my computer, and vice versa. I will not be able to play music while I am talking, which is super annoying. But I'll get it fixed. One way or another, I'll figure something out. I'll get it working again before next week. Sorry, just grabbing a little drink. All right. So it's been about a minute. We'll see if anybody shows up. If not, that's all right. But for now, let's dive in. So last time we came up with this basic sketch. All right. So last time we ended the video talking about using rounded binary form. Although now that I think about it, I think more of a ternary form would work best, where we focus on using sentences, groups of two. So if that's the case, what I'm going to do, we're going to first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We were working with 8 bar phrases, so let's take this. We'll move that over here. Gotta be careful. I don't want to be making too much noise here. But then what we're just going to do is we're going to take this over here. We're going to take this 8 bar phrase, we're going to double it. For now, we'll make some shifts when the time comes. We'll double that. And then let me mute this real quick while I move. Well, you know what? No, it's all right. Just take this. Let's see that as an end. So yeah, we did make some changes to this. So let's do that. I'm going to go quickly to my next over to mute the mic real quick. Unmute the mic. There we go. This is going to be tricky. It's going to get getting some used to here. All we're going to do is we're going to take this over here and copy and paste it over here, and then we'll have a very basic idea of ternary form. We'll make some shifts to this. This isn't going to be the final thing, but again, remember from the last video talking about the importance of a sketch. Sketch is just to let you know what material will you be working with. Oftentimes, while I'm orchestrating, I'll make slight changes here and there to make sure that it fits best to the instruments. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. But yeah, let's give this a quick listen to. So I'm going to mute the mic again real quick, and then we'll listen to it from the top. All right, unmute the mic now. All right, awesome. Sean joined. How's it going, Sean? Good to see you all the way from South Africa. Woo! Let's see, that's a long ways away. But yeah, so this is the basic idea of ternary form, which is the new form that we're going to go with. You see, it gives closer to about 2 minutes rather than just 1 minute of raw material. We now have 2 minutes of raw material to work with so that we can make that a little bit more loopable for the initial theme. So yeah, the bones are pretty good. We did, I believe, yes, we modulated around here somewhere. Then we modulated back suddenly. There wasn't anything fancy, but it worked. Anywho, this is the sketch we're going to work with today. So, yeah, Sean, if you're still out there, and anybody else is... Oh, we've got some more people joining. Awesome. Just letting everybody know, my headphones are broken. All right, or more specifically, the headphone jack on my computer is broken. So now I'm having to toggle between working with the computer and recording a live stream while trying to keep from your ears getting blown out or just getting annoyed anytime I play the music, because you'll hear it both through the computer's streaming and through the mic the way I listen to it. So I have to mute the mic anytime I play anything now today. But right now we've got a good ternary form. It's made up of a bunch of sentences. A musical sentence in terms of the structure. We'll talk about sentences here and there. They've got a couple different meanings, but in terms of form and structure, a sentence refers to two phrases, both of which have to do with the same thematic material. Right? So you've got a sentence A and a sentence B. Both of them have to deal with the same material. The second one typically has a stronger cadence at the end. Now, ternary form is commonly known as ABA material, sometimes AAA. The idea is it's got three sections to it, and those sections can have their own forms. So here we've got 3 sentences. We've got the first sentence, which has the primary thematic material, and it goes A. Then we've got the B section, which goes with a new material, more lyrical. So it goes B, both phrases dealing with the same stuff. And now the final section goes back to the original A material. That's ternary form, and it can be very repetitive, especially with this sketch that you just listened to, that we just listened to. Very repetitive, and this is where our next phase comes in, the orchestration. So let's add some space here. So there are 3 basic steps to orchestration that I like to focus on. So step 1, sound palette. Step 2 is mark out sections. 3 is map out sections. All right. So what we're going to do with sound palette is we need to find out what kind of noises are we going to work with, what kind of sounds, what kind of instruments. So okay. When this section first started out, it was like over 12 weeks ago. This has been months I've been doing this now. And I've only been working on it for 1 hour a week, if that. There have been a couple of weeks I've missed. So naturally, the plans I had when we first started this piece out are going to be very different from the plans I have now. Especially, time has gone by, we've got a theme now, I've got some... Normally, if I'm working on a piece all at one go, I'll typically stick to my initial ideas fairly easily. Here, so much time has passed, I've got different ideas of what I want to do. With timbre, we talked about focusing on drums, having a very, not like a tribal, primitive kind of feel to it to go with the characters being lizard folk. I wanted to create my own folk sound for this world. Unfortunately, I don't have the sound libraries available for that, nor do I have the same excitement for that kind of stuff. I've been learning a lot about sampling and stuff, and it's tricky, and it'd be fun, but I think right now I've made Declan, the patron who's waiting for these scenes, wait a very long time. So I want to get working on this. So the sound palette, I think, is just orchestra. All right, simple as that. I'm going to stick to the tried and true, the typical, go more of a John Williams-esque type approach rather than the Witcher video games type approach. So now we've got our sections that we need to map out. So let's remove this. The first couple sections, we're going to just say, let's add another marker track here. Let me see. Lewis, can we have a tutorial for cadences and key modulations, etc. for next tutorial? Yes, yes, that was actually... I'm bummed that I never actually included it in the Harmony series. I don't know why I didn't. But yes, there's... actually, I want to say... yeah, there's actually one coming up in the Melody series. It's going to be... Actually, yeah, this week. This week's video. I'm not done making... The script is done. I've got to record the audio, put together slides and whatnot. But it goes pretty in-depth on musical punctuation. It won't go into like specific cadence types, but it will go into a very practical, very useful approach to creating definitive endings and punctuations in your music. Something, again, that I have stolen shamelessly from Alan Belkin. Well, not stolen, well, Alan Belkin has had an incredible impact on my own style of composition. So his approach to musical punctuation is something that I use. And so I always teach you guys what I use. So yeah, don't worry about it. This week, we'll be covering it. I'm excited. We're going to go over phrase structure, actually. So markers, here we go. Section A, we'll say A1. And then these are 8-bar phrases. So then we've got A2. Then after that, so 9, 10, 1, 2, 3. So that'd be 17 here. You've got B1. Ooh, that's right. We never went back to 7/8 time, did we? But these are not more 8-bar phrases. So 16, so that would be 24 through 24. So that'd be B2. 32 through 32. That'd be A3. So what I'm doing here is I'm just marking off the different sections in the music, the different moments where we have different phrases. So 32 would then be through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 40. Of course, I should have known it was 40. So there we go. We've got A4. And that is a good point. Let me find... Is it right here? A3. Let's double check, make sure we're at the right spot. Let's see here. I'm going to move that. Make sure that we're in the right spot. So this is the end of the first phrase. Then we get into the new material. And then, yes, A3 is right here. So 31. So apparently the phrases were shorter. Is going to be right here. And this is also where we're going to need to have a switch back to 7/8 time. Alright, so anywho, these are each of our phrases. Bring that back up. So we've marked out our sections. I'm just going to say check. The next part is we want to map out these sections. So by map out, we want to figure out what material are we going to have in the foreground, midground, if there is a midground, and background. Then, once we know what material goes in each layer for each section, we can figure out how we want to orchestrate it. So we know that there's section A1. So let's say foreground. Let's give this one, that's another thing I like to go through and assign energy levels. I almost forgot to mention that. Energy levels just to let me know about the general curve in the music. So we're going to start out small, about a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. And we'll say 4. Alright, instead of semicolon, we'll do that. Alright, foreground, we'll say melody. Background, since it's going to be lower energy, let's just keep it simple. Chords and bass line. Next, A2. Energy level equals, let's say 6. It's going to build here. Foreground, once again, melody. Oh, let's add a midground. Let's see, ostinato and or counter melody. Probably just ostinato. And then background equals chords and bass line. Now, B1, this is where we get into the new material. All right, so this is going to be a lot more lyrical. Here, we're going to come back down. I'm going to say 3. So what I want to do is establish a bass line, build up an energy to emphasize it when we go through the same repetition of the same material, and then come back down. All right, when we introduce the new, more lyrical theme, this is very common in heroic themes, like hero themes. You have like an A-B-A structure, all right, where A is the heroic theme. I think I talked about this a little last time about Indiana Jones movies are very similar to this way. So you've got the A theme, ba-ba-da-ba, ba-ba-ba. Terribly out of tune, sorry. And then you've got the B theme, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And so you've got the A theme, builds up lots of energy, builds up the big heroic thing, then it comes in to bring down the energy with the B theme, where it's more lyrical, a little more laid back, a little sweeter. And then, through contrast, after you've had a big heroic thing, you've had a small lyrical thing, bam, when the heroic theme comes back, suddenly it's got a lot more oomph behind it because of that contrast. Does that make sense? Let's see. So, let's see. Energy level, we're going to come back down with this. Foreground equals melody. Background equals bass line and chords. B2, we're going to build a little bit. Equals 5, building a little bit. So we're going to start building beyond the initial statement. Getting back to where we were. Foreground, we'll say melody. Background. Let's go to midground. Let's do a midground here. Midground equals counter melody, definitely. Background equals bass line and chords. All right. Then we come back to the heroic theme. All right. Energy level. Let's get it even higher. Let's say 8. All right. So again, these are all just kind of arbitrary numbers here. There's no formula to tell me, yes, this phrase would be an 8 or a 7.5, or there's nothing like that. No, the idea here is that I'm just allowing myself to create a bit of a visual, like a visual guide in my mind, saying, all right, we're going to start off with low energy, then we're going to build, then we're going to come back down. Then we're going to build, and then bam, we're going to hit a really big moment, then we'll come back down again before we loop the whole thing. So foreground equals melody. Midground equals counter melody and ostinato. And then background equals chords and bass line. All right, then the last one, A4, still same material, energy. Let's bring it down to a 6 again to help bring us, set us back up to re-loop, because we do need to make sure that this is loopable to a certain degree. Energy level is a 6. Foreground equals melody. Midground equals counter melody and or ostinato. Background equals chords and bass line. All right, excellent. So now we've got a basic map for each of these sections. There's nothing fancy. You can get a lot more detailed with these if you'd like. I'm sorry, my chair is so squeaky. But the basic idea here is we just want to have a nice little visualizing, like a visual aid. It was sticking between aid and guide. I don't know why. Anywho, we want to be able to know where we're going with the music. If you are just sitting there and trying to go based off your ear, you can make some beautiful stuff. When I was starting out, that's what I did, is I just listened to my ear and I thought, all right, so I'm building this, I'll repeat that idea, maybe I'll throw in these instruments. And it's nice, it's definitely useful, but when you need to be able to hold yourself accountable, when you have deadlines to make, you need to have systems that work. This is one that works well for me. I like to plan out each section ahead of time. And so now that we have our sections mapped out, we can create our orchestration map. All right, so starting out here, foreground. All right, the initial. Well, one thing I will say here is intro. Plan later. I like to do my intros last. That way, I know how the music sounds. I know what it needs to do to serve the role of the music and stuff like that. So we'll come back to the intro at the end. But for this energy level, right now we've got low energy. Chords and bass line. This is going to be a heroic theme, a John Williams style theme now. Typically, heroic themes are very heavy with brass. All right, so the melody is almost always performed by brass instruments. So a very simple, low energy style is we'll have horns, solo, possibly a solo horn. I'm thinking a solo horn will work. And then strings. It's really that simple. All right, you don't need to do anything crazy. You don't need to be using the entire orchestra all the time. All right, so we'll use horn solo to introduce the theme. Then we'll have strings. And then percussion. Like I said, if you've watched my orchestration videos, I mentioned that I like to do the percussion last, and that's still true to this day. I'm not a percussionist. I don't hear things percussively unless I'm working with a predominantly percussive piece. So I'll typically write out the pieces that I'm familiar with, melody, harmony, all that stuff. And then if I have specific ideas that come to me for the percussion, I'll throw them in. But I'll wait until the end to actually go through multiple times and think of each of the traditional uses of percussion and see where they could fit in. Let's see. For just a reminder, traditional uses of percussion can be remembered with the acronym DOES, HBH. It's doubling for color, ostinati, extreme dynamics, solo statements, harmonic support, builds and climaxes, and highlighting accents. Those are the 7 traditional uses of percussion. There are others that you can do. I was just recently watching a video by Tom Holkenberg on YouTube for how he creates his percussion libraries. It was awesome. Loved it. Inspiring. But there are lots of creative uses, but especially for breaking out those 7 traditional parameters are super useful. Go through your music at the end or at the beginning, whenever you want. Go through each roll one at a time. Are there any moments where you could use a percussion instrument to double for color? Is there any moments where you could help it double in ostinato? Are there moments where it could have a solo statement? Moments where you could have builds or climaxes, things like that. Very useful for that. But let's get back to this map here. So here, what we've got for energy level, typically what we'll do, melody, we'll say horns together, strings, and tuba. So we'll introduce the tuba here, yeah. I don't know, not here, not here, not yet. Strings, percussion. So far it's looking exactly like this section up here. So now we need to start thinking, where can we add? All right, how can we start building? This is supposed to be a higher energy level. So far we're adding some material, so let's see what we're going to put in there. Let's say, well, first of all, unison. Horns are often written multiple parts. If you have 4 horns, you can write up to 4 different parts, one for each player. So for the melody, I'm going to say horns in unison. Or maybe trumpets. Maybe trumpets. We'll see. I'm leaving it open. This is supposed to be a starting point. All right, something for me to know that I have an idea. I've fleshed out a basic trajectory for where the orchestration is going to go. As we build on, we can kind of we can improvise, but it's good to have a nice foundation, something to lean on. So now we've got midgrounds, ostinati, and counter melody. Let's say strings and woodwinds are good for this. Woodwinds in particular are fantastic for ostinati and for just ear candy is what it's called. Trills, runs, all these little decorative sounds. John Williams uses a lot of them. He's master at using them. So we'll introduce the woodwind section here. Every time you introduce a new section, it helps build the energy, as long as you're not taking away 2 others when you add it. But let's see here. So energy level, foreground melody. This is where we'll switch it. We'll take it away from the brass. Melody, woodwind, solo. Possibly solos. We could split up the phrase if we did multiple instruments. Bass line and chords. Strings. Divisi, question mark. So divisi is a technique for using the string section where you divide it. So let's say you've got a 16-person violin section. Violin ones, you're working with a massive orchestra, you've got 16 first violins. All right, and you've got just a massive. If you've got 16 first violins, you're gonna have a massive string section because then that's, let's say you've got 12 second violins. Let's say you've got 12 violas, maybe 14 celli, 4 or 5 basses. These are just random numbers. A massive section. Now let's say if you want to come into an intimate moment, all right, and you still want to use full 4-part harmony across the string section, but you don't want that many strings. A technique you can use is called divisi. For example, here you could say, all right, I'm going to take the first violins, the 16 or so violins, I can't remember how many I said we had, 16, and I'm going to divide that in half. So now instead of one section of violins, violin ones are now 2 sections of 8 violins each. I'm going to have one section play this part, another section play this part, then say the celli. I'm going to take the celli, cut them in half. So now I've still got 4 parts. You've got 2 celli sections, 2 first violin sections, and they can play these 4 parts. By dividing the numbers of players, you've effectively made a much smaller, like mini string section compared to the full one in general. Still playing all the parts, but it reduces a lot of that power and makes it a lot more intimate, if that makes sense. Again, I've got some orchestration videos. They're not the best quality audio-wise, and I do plan on redoing it in the future. But yeah, a lot of good information in there. Strings, bass line, woodwind solos, and then of course percussion. You know what? I'm going to stop putting percussion. I'm going to say all sections. So we can have percussion in all sections to varying degrees. Let's see. Hey, Declan's on. Awesome. Yes, yes. Okay, so I missed a bunch of comments. So Sean, yes, we do need some woodwinds in here. Get a fantasy vibe. Ooh, good idea. All right, one second. Fantasy vibe. If we're going for a fantasy vibe, plucked strings. Plucked. How do you spell plucked? No. Plucked, question mark. Let's try harp. Celeste? No Celeste. Well, Celeste, maybe. Celeste is a percussion keyboard instrument. It's basically like a combination of a glockenspiel, so like a metal xylophone, chimes, but with a keyboard. Beautiful, beautiful sound. Used to great effect in the soundtracks that John Williams used in Harry Potter and in Jurassic Park. Beautiful instrument. Fantastic for fantasy. In fantasy, the biggest like voice for fantasy, if you want to get a fantasy texture in your music, it comes down to orchestration. It uses lots of plucked strings, lots of harp, choir, pitched metal percussion like chimes, non-pitched like triangles and stuff like that. It's got lots of woodwinds, a whole lot of stuff. I could do a whole video on that stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it. But yes, metallic percussion, plucked strings, and voices go a long way. Let's see. Yeah, I'll put in some voices. Voices, fantasy type setting. So yeah, because this is for D&D characters. It is going to be a fantasy type setting. So there shouldn't just be the traditional John Williams style massive orchestral piece. We could go a lot more for like the fantasy type style approach as well. So yeah, I'm just going to put that here. Swap out heroic for fantastic. All right. Yeah, I'd like that. So thank you, Sean. That's a great idea. Go from the thing. So then, missed it. Whoa, missing some more. Declan, hello. It's been a while. Awesome. Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Declan. Yes, it has been a while. You haven't been on the last couple streams. Good to have you, as always. Especially because these are for your characters. So I'm excited. We're getting to the orchestration phase now. And so from here on, it's going to start building up quite a bit, much faster. All right, Holden, how would you go around adding dance music drums to classical instrumentation? What kind of like Yoko Kanno style? Yoko Kanno. Not familiar with Yoko Kanno. I'm probably familiar. I just don't recognize the name. So for dance style drums, it breaks down to a couple different things, and I could go into this at length, but specific roles. To my understanding, dance style rhythms come from basically the drum kit, because the drum kit was built for dance style rhythms. So you've got 3 primary roles. You've got the hi-hat, which is a timekeeper. All right, the hi-hat, so you need a quick, short, transient sound. It's hitting, it keeps time. It shows the beat and the subdivisions of the beat. So that's eighth notes typically, sometimes 16th notes if it's a slow rhythm. Then you've got something that has to fill the role of a snare, which hits the weak pulses, or the backbeat, as it's called. So we've talked a couple times about how different beats and measures aren't all the same. Actually, the most recent video in the Melody series tackled that. Like in 4/4 time, beats 1 and 3 are the strongest, and 2 and 4 are the weakest. So the snare will be in charge of those weak beats. So 1, 2, 2. And then the bass drum needs to fill in that pulse. The bass drum will hit the strong beats most of the time, and then add anything else that it wants to. The bass drum is where you get your groove. It's where you get the identifiable rhythm and the identity for any piece. So honestly, for going into classical music, you would just start with that. I know, who was it? James Newton Howard talked about when he did Raya and the Last Dragon. He did an interview or a podcast for Disney where he talks about that's how he does his music. He had his background in pop music. And so he starts every piece by figuring out his groove, his rhythm, and then builds everything from there. So I would say I'd recommend the same approach. Start with your groove first, and then build from there to create the rest of the music. Hopefully that helps. Yes, some pizzicato is, yes. Pizzicato, ooh, ocarina. An ocarina would be awesome. I unfortunately don't have an ocarina sound library. I've got, let me show you what I got. All right, so we'll put this over here. I have got Spitfire's Albion 1. This was the very first sound library I ever bought. Fantastic starter library. It's got everything you need for a full orchestra, plus some percussion and some synths. It's awesome. Drum Lab, I've got a lot of native instruments stuff years ago on like a Black Friday, where here in America, Black Friday, it's like the Friday after our Thanksgiving holiday in November. It's a day where a lot of stores and shops give crazy discounts on their shops. And Native Instruments does the same. So I bought a complete package, which is a lot of their sound libraries years ago. And I'm still figuring out all what I got. So I got a Drum Lab, which helps me with beats. I've got a bass, percussion, solo strings, brass, strings, woodwinds, couple pianos. On top of that, I've got some fun instruments. So this is like a bunch, another one, native instruments. Dulcimer, I made that myself. Harp, got a big old pipe organ. That's just my contact libraries. If we look at my, over here, these, I've also got a couple synthesizers. I've got Massive, Massive X, Absinthe, a bunch of stuff. Here's my sound player. These are the libraries I'm probably going to use for this sound, mostly. Anytime I need to do a solo piece, I'll use my Spitfire libraries. But Metropolis Arc, these are both done by Orchestral Tools, and Metropolis Arc 2 are fantastic orchestral libraries. Again, this is something I got in a deal years ago. I don't get to use those libraries nearly often enough, so we'll be playing around with those. Now I'm just kind of showing off my gear right now. There are other libraries that I still want to get. There's a lot of stuff. It's a curse. It's never enough. I want to make my own as well. I've been learning how to use Kontakt to sample instruments, and I'm actually taking a class this semester that starts on Monday, specifically about sampling. So I'm super excited about that. And since this semester, I'm focusing a lot on electronic music. But anyway, we got to continue with this. Yes, Sean, I do have some. I've got some awesome tools. Recently, I've just been kind of sitting around playing around with some of them. I'm working on a piece for a video that I'm going to be doing soon. So when I launch my book, I'm going to be releasing a video based on, basically I'm going to take a chapter from the book and I'm going to turn it into a video. Right now, I'm toying between the ideas of either doing the first chapter, which goes in depth on the 9 parameters of music and how they can be used for storytelling, or the one I'm leaning to most likely is the chapter on emotion in music and how to use the emotion of a scene as inspiration for writing music. And so for that chapter, I've been actually working on writing a piece for a short story I've got to demonstrate just how the tool is used. But we'll see, we'll see. Right now the book is still being edited. The audiobook is going to be made soon too, so I'm excited. I'm really proud of the book, and I'm excited to be sharing it with you guys. There will be a discount for all my patrons, and we'll be doing a book club on Patreon, where like once a week or something I'll do a live stream on Patreon to discuss chapters, answer any questions, stuff like that. And then eventually those videos will be uploaded to YouTube, but that'll probably take a month or so before after that. We'll see, we'll see. Anywho, energy level here, we're building on the B material. Fantasy. All right, I want to remember this. Foreground, melody. Let's say woodwinds, doubling with strings and or choir. We're going to start building this up a little bit. Counter melody. Let's say strings and pitched metallic percussion. Possibly harp. We'll say also possibly choir. Children's and or women's choir. So if I do introduce voices, I want to save. I've got a couple nice choir sound libraries based off those Metropolis Arc sound libraries I showed you. They've got a really nice basso profundo choir with super deep, low male voices. So I would want to save those until our next scene where we have the climactic moment. But background, let's just stick to what we got. Strings and woodwinds. We'll have the low woodwinds here, definitely. Especially, let's see here. We'll say that up here too. Low woods. Alright, so next we have got the climactic moment in this piece. Alright, so foreground, melody. This is where, so little pro tip. When you want to create a climax in your music, a big shining moment. Actually, someone asked about this recently in a comment, and I responded. A big trick for building a climax and having it hit your audience in the face and just be really awesome is to introduce something that has not been used elsewhere in your music, or at least hasn't been used in a while. In my orchestration series, I talk about how this is where the brass section is very typically used. Either the brass won't be used altogether, or they'll be hinted at, different sections coming in here and there. But typically, the very first time an entire brass section will enter together will be at a climactic moment, and it is awesome. I still get chills every time I hear it used well in music, executed properly. So let's say foreground, we'll say trumpet. Midground, trumpets. We'll say strings. Choir? We'll say choir. Midgun, counter melody in ostinato. We'll say strings. Woodwinds, ear candy. And horns. I'm going to put, actually, yeah, we'll have a question mark there because the horns I think will be more than powerful enough to carry a counter melody. Strings could be an ostinati, so could the woodwinds. Background. Here we are going to go strings, tuba, and trombones. 1 tuba and 3 trombones performing the melody together. So 1 trombone in each voice, tuba on the bass line. More than powerful enough to carry like an entire orchestra. The brass section is pretty much unrivaled in terms of pure power in the traditional orchestra. The strings can match it because of their numbers. There are just so many string players, more string players than any other section. But in terms of like how much power a single brass instrument can produce, it's unrivaled from anything else in the orchestra instrument. So this is more than enough. We'll say low winds. In fact, I'm going to say bass line, shared across all families. That's another strong tip. Anytime you want to create something heavy, make sure it's represented by at least 1 instrument from every family. So if you're using strings, percussion, brass, and choir, make sure that each of those 4 sections have at least 1 representative on the bass line. Typically in big, like epic music, you'll have it across both the bass line and the melody. All right, so that creates a massive, massive presence. Then, of course, percussion is going to be added here, but then the energy is coming back down. Melody, let's say trumpets. We'll bring it down to the trumpets. Or trombones. Let's see, maybe we could switch it up. Maybe strings? We'll see. We'll see how big the climax is when we orchestrate it, so we know how to appropriately come back a little while setting up for the return up here in case the music is going to be looped. Let's see, midground, counter melody, and or ostinato. Let's say strings, we'll say possibly horns, possibly woods on ear candy. Oh, yeah, 1 second. Choir. Choir. Low voices enter. Background, chords and bass line. Let's keep it simple. Strings. All right, so this energy, so right now we've got a pretty decent map. We've got each section planned out with a basic structure. So again, this probably isn't going to be an exact word-for-word description of what we're going to end up with. But it's going to help keep me from floundering and trying to just... Oops, sorry. Oh, my external drive has come undone. But yeah, so breaking down different... so instead of having to struggle and say, what am I going to do with this sketch? What's next? I can say, all right, with this section, first off, put the melody in the horns. Let's write it for strings. Let's play it and make adjustments as we go. All right, and it goes for each section to see how it sounds. And yeah, we will have to save this for the next video because, like I said, my headphones are broken. I need to get those fixed and or replaced. And yeah, and plus, I would like to preload all of my libraries that I'll be using, all templates. But yeah, next week we will be orchestrating the material. We will go through and orchestrate as much as we can in an hour. And yeah, once that is fully done and orchestrated, then we'll mix it. And then from there, we'll either loop it to make a long version or move right on into creating the other 3 versions. Because remember, we've still got to adapt this. It'll be a lot quicker than what we've done. It's not going to take 12 episodes to adapt for each one. Now that we've got the basic material, we can move from here and we can reorchestrate it, create new mixes to take this from just the typical heroic theme to turn it into battle music, turn it into sad music, turn it into town music, whatever the other genres were that were voted on Patreon. We'll see. But yeah, so I think this is what we'll call it. I'll stay on for a minute or two for any questions. Yes. Maybe Ocarina. Yeah, I wish I had an Ocarina. Answer. Holden, very informative answer. Thank you. Yes, glad to help. Let's see. The ARC libraries are so amazing. Yes, I love Metropolis ARC. I really feel like I haven't used enough orchestral tools. I love Spitfire. I really, really do. The main reason why I stick to Spitfire so much is because, let me show you, I like to write from a traditional orchestral approach. So what I've got here, so I'll show you like violins 1. I can have a 16 section, violins 1, 8. Then they've got Divisi sections if I want to make them even smaller. Then they've got, so you'll see they've got one for literally every single instrument, multiple libraries for every single instrument, and each of these will have their own different techniques, their own different articulations and voices that I can use. If I go to something like Albion 1, you'll see just strings. So there's one patch for the entire string section. That's all right. It brings its own issues with it. But so a lot of my music I like to write out. After I write it in a DAW, I like to notate it and turn it into an actual score. So for that, it's really helpful to have an orchestra like this, where I can have complete control over each individual section. But that's not the approach I'm going to take for this. I don't plan on notating this, at least yet. And I really want to go more for the massive, kind of like cinematic approach, which is where the Metropolis ARC libraries really thrive. Oh, wow. So we've got a bunch of things coming up. Orchestration next week. So now that we've got this taken care of, now that we've got the map, normally, originally I had wanted to get going today. But since my headphones are broken and I would have to constantly mute the mic over and over again anytime I tried to play something, it wouldn't make for a very effective video. So next week, 1 week from today, we will be diving in. When the video starts, I will have the libraries preloaded into a template, and we'll just get started right away using this map we just drew together. Let's see. Is the melody already set? Yes, the melody's taken care of for the most part. I'll make changes here and there. The sketch isn't written in stone. I can make adjustments as I think fits the instruments or what I'd like. But yeah, this sketch right here is what we're going to work with. It's about 1 minute, 45 seconds in total length. We'll get with the different orchestration, we'll make it so it sounds better when you loop it. So it's not just so repetitive like it is on just piano and chords right now. Could we get another reminder of the current material at the end, please? Yes, of course, yeah. So yeah, I'll play through the sketch real quick so that, just remember, a sketch does not sound anything like the eventual piece. This isn't even just a standalone piano piece. If I were to write this as a standalone piano piece, I'd have a lot of work to do to make it more idiomatic for piano. This is literally just the melody, tentative melody. Like I said, changes can be made, tentative chords, and tentative bass line. So yeah, we'll play it in a moment. Let's see. Yes, excited for the next scene. So am I. It's going to be awesome. I like Spitfire as well. Not that. Okay, yes, I do love Spitfire. I'm a very loyal Spitfire patron. As far as laying down the law lately. Yes, yes. So there's. I'm loyal to Spitfire, but I'm not going to be like. I'm not an exclusive. All right, I will go for every project. I go to whatever library works the best for it. Sometimes that's orchestral tools. Sometimes that's native instruments. Sometimes that's Spitfire. Sometimes it's my own homemade libraries. It depends. They're all fantastic. They've got different tools, and yeah, I try not to get stuck in like the which is better kind of thing. Keen for next week? Yes. So am I. So with that, I will mute my mic so we can play this, and so you can get a reminder, and then we'll call it a day after that. Let's see here. Mute. All right, yeah, so that's it. A simple, straightforward sketch. Ternary form, so it's got two A sections. So it's a sentence here with the same material, another sentence here with different material, then a third sentence that harkens back to the original material. We've got our orchestra map for how we want to orchestrate it, and the orchestration is going to bring it to life. So I'm excited for this. I love orchestrating. If I had to say that there were two things more important to any other skill set for a composer to have, one is a command over harmony, and two is a command over orchestration. You would be amazed how far those two tool sets can take you. If you're a songwriter, it's a different case. I'd say harmony and melody are most important. But for orchestration, you'd be surprised how like a passable skill in writing melodies can take you as long as you are masterful at harmony and orchestration. So I'm excited. Next week we do orchestration. That'll last a couple weeks until the whole thing is done. Then we'll do mixing. We'll mix the whole thing down, export it, and then we'll upload the final product to YouTube before continuing on to make additional versions of this. We'll make a sad version, battle music version, whatever the 4 genres that were voted on in Patreon were. I'm blanking out, so I'll have to check that out again. But yeah, that's awesome. So yes, it's great to have everybody. If you are late, don't worry. There's always going to be more. As always, you can always shoot me your questions over email. You can put them in the comments. You can send them to me on Instagram. I'm not very active on Instagram in terms of posting, but I do respond to stuff if I get it. For now, if I get overwhelmed, then I won't be able to. But yes, so please, if you got any questions, don't feel afraid to shoot them out. I had a lot of fun. I always love going live with you guys. Very active this week. Thank you so much for your comments, questions, and everything. It makes it a lot more enjoyable when I've got people to talk with. But yeah, so next week we will be orchestrating this entire thing based off the plan we came up together with. yeah, it's going to be fun. So, as always, just keep working hard, keep studying, and keep writing new music. All right? So have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.